is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We begin with a mother's story on this Mother's Day. Marissa Lorenzano Wallace was a teacher in Mercedes, Texas when her son was born 3 weeks premature and the doctor asked, okay, who's going to stay home? That was just the beginning of the story she shares in her book, It's Going to Be Okay. So you took notes along the way?
Exactly. I wrote little episodes of everyday life challenges, some good, some bad. And as a teacher, I knew because Ethan actually was in the hospital for 110 days.
Oh,
So with the training that I had received from the school districts and from the state, I knew right off that he was probably going to be autistic because he couldn't do certain things normal. And I hate to use the word normal,
yeah.
but regular children could do at his stage and the ages. So he was able to get the help that he needed, and he started school at 3 years of age. So that's why I wrote little episodes and little scenarios of what had happened, with our everyday challenges, and that's what inspired me to write a book.
And what is it that, is most important for you to share?
It's actually the awareness and for the parents that they're not alone, especially the families who have an autistic child. We are there with you. We understand the challenges. And I want, the society to be aware that these children, they're a gift from God and they're just designed by God. There's no mistakes. They just learn a little differently than we do. And that everything was going to be okay. And we're here to help each other.
Which is the name of your book.
Yes.
How is your son at this point?
He's 14 now. He does not know how to regulate the water to take a shower. I have to be there. That's another issue why I left my profession is to teach him how to wash clothes, how to cook. I take him to the grocery store, teaching him how to buy groceries, what to look for, the nutritional guide, what it means, how to pay for groceries, how to pump gas in your car. Like even going up and down the escalators at the mall. He didn't know how to do that, and he was very scared. We kept going up and down, and of course, one of the police officers got upset with me because he said that the escalators were not a toy. My child needs to not play with the escalator going up and down. And I explained to him, as a teacher, I this is through education, and goes because I cannot live forever. I'm 52 and I cannot live another 50, 60 years. So my son needs to be independent. He needs to know how to get around, how to use the escalator. And he looked at me and he said, I never thought of that. It just like I never realized what you just said just impacted. I'm so sorry. I said, no, that this is exactly why, I do what I do. This is why I wrote a book, for people to understand that, they also need the help. So he's going to need to know how to live on his own, how to pay bills, how to survive, how to be a productive citizen in our society. And the school districts, of course, the superintendent and here in the local school district, since I taught here for so many years, they're wanting me to talk about my book. They're going to promote it. Barnes and Noble, which is, about 20 minutes to the west of me. I've already gone and I'm doing a book signing in the summer. Um, so a lot of my family members who live across the country here, they've already got their books, San Francisco and Chicago and Massachusetts, everywhere, and all my cousins or relatives have already gotten their copy and they're actually promoting it for me. Most of them are teachers or administrators. So in San Antonio, they've already gotten some of my colleagues or former colleagues and classmates who are teachers slash administrators they want me to go and speak on the school district with the school district and talk about my book. Why did I write this book? Like I said, this awareness, and they really liked it. And usually, then the special education department here has several copies to share with their teachers as well.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great, man. You're ahead of the game already, Marissa. You really are. You really are. You should be very proud of yourself. Yeah. Well, you're lucky because you're kind of entrenched where you are. People know who you are. And I'm telling you, in this pandemic, it's been really difficult. So you're doing a great thing and you're definitely on your way. And just think how many people are going to benefit from, knowing that they're not alone. So
Yeah, thank you.
Michael Egbert is no ordinary retired cop. His career took him all over the world and inspired 3 books for Page, well, so far, including Doc and JD, Houston's own dynamic duo, American Cop in Bosnia, and now 1968, about the year he spent in Vietnam as a Navy photographer with a combat rating.
So they sent me to a Marine recon platoon in Da Nang to go out on patrols with them out in the jungle to photograph things, whatever they found, for intelligence purposes. And that's basically what I did. And of course, then the course of the time out in the patrols, we got into little things that happen now and then, some firefights, and it was just one of those surprise assignments. I never thought that the Navy supplied combat photographers to the Marines.
Jeez, did you ever fear for your life?
Oh yes, more than once. The base commander attacked just about every day, and sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. And each time it came under attack, we had orders to go out and try to locate wherever that attack came from. And then whatever they left behind, I was supposed to photograph intelligence purposes before the Marines destroyed it. We'd come across enemy soldiers, we'd come across booby traps, and all kinds of different things. Plus, there was times I actually got to fly. My squadron had a detachment there in Vietnam for aerial recon, and occasionally I would get called over to the flight deck to fill in for somebody who couldn't fly for some particular reason that day, and I would take their spot on the aircraft because we flew in an airplane that had 4-man crews. Well, the fourth one, me, would be sitting in the back with all the cameras and changing the magazines on the cameras. And these magazines held 100 feet of film, and the pictures they took were 9 inches by 9 inches square. Some of those pictures were beautiful. They were like slides, only 9 inches by 9 inches in color. A lot of it was in black and white. Some of it was infrared because we flew at night sometimes. But the planes flew without fighter escort, which took a lot of courage, I guess, because the planes weren't armed. But we would land, I'd unload the magazines that were taken, and then they would take them over to the lab to be developed. It was an interesting year because I got there December of 1967, shortly before Bob Hope's Christmas show. And I got called over to the command headquarters because I was being assigned to photograph Bob Hope's Christmas show there in Da Nang for the Marine Corps because he was there to entertain the Marines. And his headliner that year was Raquel Welch.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think so at the time. She was probably the most beautiful woman I ever laid eyes on at that time.
She's perfect, right? She was perfect.
Yeah, and I was right there at the stage, not more than 20 feet away from her, taking pictures. Of course, I took pictures of the crowd shouting and carrying on too behind me. It was only supposed to be for 30 days. It started out as a temporary assignment, and I ended up doing a whole tour, the whole 13 months. What I missed about it was the guys, because I got pretty close to some of those guys, and some of them got killed, and that was a hard thing to deal with. This book by far was probably my most difficult one to write because my emotions kept getting in the way. I was 19 at the time, and most of the guys I was with, they were about the same age or maybe a year or two older.
What an interesting book.
Yeah, I'm actually getting a lot of positive feedback on it, and I've heard that it's probably going to be next month. They're going to start accepting nominations for the Pulitzer, and I've been hearing through the grapevine that this book's going to be nominated for a Pulitzer.
Get out.
Yes, I was surprised to hear that too. Of course, being nominated doesn't mean they're going to win anything, but
Doesn't matter. Being nominated, it's pretty awesome.
yeah, I think so. In fact, I've talked to one fellow over in England who is trying to encourage me to go over there and do book signings.
You should do it.
So yeah, I'd like to, but of course they're shut down too because of the COVID.
But we're coming out of it, Michael. So hopefully, any day now we'll be able to go to Europe. A small town doctor in Washington state for over 30 years before he moved to the big island of Hawaii, Ellis Johnson delivers his second book in a series for Page entitled Virulence. So your main character, Dr. Sean Nolan, definitely has a lot in common with you, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I've written all my life part-time and always toyed with the idea of having the freedom to sit down and develop a character. I really didn't think too much about doing a series until I came over here, and it just kind of fell into an easy pattern where once this small town doctor got a taste of being a medical detective, he just kind of stumbles into one adventure after another.
Well, this is a follow-up to your first book that you did for Page, right?
Correct. First book was called Unraveling, and the second one was Virulence. And now that Dr. Nolan has established a little bit of a reputation as an investigator, there's been an outbreak of Legionnaire's disease in Southern California that claimed 47 lives. The CDC has been in there with a full team for 3 weeks, and they haven't been able to find the source of the outbreak, and it just fades away. So the CDC gets called out to take care of other problems, and one of the people that worked with Dr. Nolan on his first adventure suggests to the CDC director that they send him in there, give him 2 weeks to see if he can figure out where this came from and if they missed anything. So he is kind of excited by that prospect, heads down to Southern California, and what he finds is totally unexpected. That's where it takes off, and it's a pretty wild ride. In fact, as he gets into these adventures, every book is a little wilder and crazier than the last one. So,
Yeah, you say that he's got an unorthodox approach to what he does.
yep, he's by no means a superhero. He's just a regular guy that won't take no for an answer. So he doesn't know martial arts. He doesn't like guns, but he has no problem with lying or impersonating other people or stealing or doing anything else he has to if it advances his cause.
Now, are you developing a little following?
You know, everybody that does a book ends up selling copies to friends and family. But then the process of learning how to market and get your work out there begins. And this is just the second book. We're still learning, discovering the tools that are out there for advertising. And little by little, hopefully we get better at this, because there's been a number of really good positive reviews. And I've made some preliminary contact with Indie Reader and Book Viral and BookBub and Goodreads, and like I said, little by little we're learning. So the most important part was just to sit down and write these books and invent a character that's kind of a throwback to the old Western days. You know, the good guys wore white hats and the bad guys wore black hats, and there wasn't anything in between. So that's kind of what Dr. Nolan is. He just sees a problem and he wants to fix it.
All right, Ellis. Looking forward to the next one. Claudio Sternberger lived under 3 dictatorships while he was growing up on the border of Italy and the former Yugoslavia. Fascism, Nazism, and communism. He says he knows a hidden agenda when he sees one, and that's what inspired his book, The World as I See It.
So I drew a parallel between my experiences under these 3 dictatorships and the similarity of Trump behavior to that of Mussolini and Hitler, believe it or not. And so fundamentally reflecting upon those experiences that I decided to write a book that would deal with the hidden messages, observation and reflections looking beneath the veil and myth of society under which I lived, which was, again, then I come to this country and I run into this bum called Trump.
So it's saying, so it's not a book, it's not a story, it's proverbs, it's sayings. Can you give me an example of one?
I was in Italy, the Second World War, and Mussolini was always on the radio giving inspirational rhetoric to its people. According to him, we were always winning. And to give you an extreme, he was first saying vincere, which means to win. We are committed to win. Then the next message, as things started to get a little bit worse, it became a future tense. Vinceremo, we will win. And then no more than a month before the government collapsed, he was saying victory is inevitable. Let's think about this. To win, we will win. Victory is inevitable, and then we got wiped out. So it's amazing how nonsense can be spread out and fed to the people. And that's the importance of being alert to not be swept away with the charisma of the dictators, such as Trump. If you think about 70 million Americans were swept away by Trump because of his charisma and because he was skillful in his rhetoric. In fact, I can fully understand Mussolini was very charismatic. And when I was probably 8 years old, I was a part of the Mussolini youth because he swept the country with his rhetoric, and he was proclaiming that Italy was going to return to our past glory of the Roman Empire. So when you're being fed all these kind of palatable, sweet, gentle, glorious words, you are easy to embrace them without thinking. I have not been telling people about my book because fundamentally the reason why I wrote my book is to crystallize my thoughts for my sake and to offer something to my family as relative to my background as a young fellow. So I didn't have the ambition to become a very popular writer. So my commitment was really to myself and to my family.
Well, fair enough, Claudio. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back. This is the Page Publishing Book Club.
Have you written a book and want to get it published? Then now's the time to call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099 and do it immediately. You see, they're looking for authors of all types of books. And unlike most publishers, Page Publishing will take the time to review most of the books submitted to them. And they'll even give you their feedback. And if they like what they read, Page Publishing will get your book into bookstores and for sale online at Amazon, the Apple iTunes Store, and other outlets. They'll handle everything. Copyright protection, printing, cover art, publicity, and editing. So if you've written a novel, a children's book, a cookbook, inspirational work, a book of poetry, or biography, and want to get it published, then you need to call Page Publishing and do it immediately. Call 800-204-6099 now for your free author submission kit. Your road to fame and fortune could very well start with this simple phone call. For your free author submission kit, call Page Publishing at 800-204-6099.
We're back on the Page Publishing Book Club. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. Richard Haldeman is a journalist, teacher, and worked in public relations at Erskine College in South Carolina. Now he can add author to the list with a book he's written about the extraordinary life of his brother, Charles Haldeman, a memoir, Mid-Century Journeys as a Vagabond.
Charles was a novelist, documentary writer, a lyricist, wrote a musical, magazine editor, and he also had training as an artist and was a poet. But the story of his life is of a very unusual and very gifted man. I think that his story gives us a picture of several things of interest in his life. Pre-war New York City, the lives of children growing up during World War II, the Jim Crow South, how things were in Hitler Germany. He traveled the post-war world in the Pacific in the Navy, so he went to live and did his work in Greece. He worked at Brentano's bookstore and met all the literary elite there. Later on, he had a home in Greece and greeted the literary elite of that time. A lot of them were expatriates in Greece. His life was exciting as his books. It's sort of a early success and later disappointment. Later on, because he purchased a home in Greece, which you couldn't do really as an American through.
Did he lose everything that he worked for?
Pretty much, yes. That's sort of a tragedy of this. People who knew him, there are a couple of people in New York that I think are still living that I was not able to make any contact with that are in the book, and I'm going to mention their names just in case they happen to hear this or someone. One is the poet David Levine, and the other is a photographer named Carol Martin. We're talking about people that are in their 80s, of course, if they're living. This book is written mainly from his letters. Starts off with my experiences with him as a child, growing up with him. The story calls him a vagabond author, and we were sort of a vagabond family for a long time. We moved all over the place. He lived all over the place as a child and as an adult. He died 6 months after my mother died. We were with him because he came to America when she was dying, 1982. But he also came back in 75 when he'd lost his home. He was trying to get reestablished. And he also came and did a film series in Canada, 1979 to 1981. He traveled throughout the United States. He'd lived in San Diego, California. So he had sort of a sense of both coast in America, but he lived his last 25 years he lived in Greece, and his big disappointment of his life was not becoming a citizen of Greece, because that's where he decided to make his home. It's sort of a lost time. We sort of end World War II, and then we jump on past the generation like myself that grew up as children during World War II, and then a lot of older people like my brother. My brother did not fight in Korea, but the Korean War, we were a real wartime generation. We were born in the Depression, and I wanted to have a sense of that, but also of this really gives a description, I think, of America and of Europe to some degree during that period. 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s. That's the mid-century of America. And this is a story of a family, also our family, and a life of an unusually gifted man who lived in and chronicled the world of the mid-century America, the Pacific, and Europe. He lived in that time, and he wrote about that time.
Man, he had some life. Thank you so much for sharing, Richard. Finally, Rena Weaver started writing children's books 20 years ago. Finally, she started publishing them with Page. Her first book was Arioki Cub and Pals in Search of Blueberry Syrup, and now Arioki Children's Series 2. The books celebrate every religion, every culture, and working together.
She's a koala bear, and she lives in a little town, Blossom Valley. And it turned her family, they are a family of Asian, Australian koala bears. And in this little town, there is a collaboration of all types of ethnic group of characters. They have a Simi the snail. He's from Africa. And then they have Hector Lamb. He's from South America. Willow Kitty. She's from Asia. And there's like 3 other characters. And they're all from different, countries all over the world. And then we have Andre the ant. He's an American ant. And they live together. They work together. They all go to school. They do a lot of community services. And they always get their parents involved in any activities that they do. Arioki decides she wants to have a tea party. She invites all her friends over for muffins and to play. One of the favorite stories that I've read to the children in the public school system is School Rock. And it's all about the children wanting to improve their school. In their community, the school has gotten older. So the children and all the parents, they get involved and they begin to paint the school and plant new flowers and put in new playground with swings. And everyone in the community helps. The fire department helps. And all the parents and all the children and all the teachers and all of the little animals, they all have their own little occupations. Willow Kitty's father drives the ice cream truck. Brianna Cloud's dad is Papa Puffin Cloud. I also did, in addition, in every holiday, there's one about St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day, Christmas, New Year's Eve, Thanksgiving, so Easter, and there's a story about all of the holidays.
And you're lucky because you're able to share your stories through the Oasis program, right? That you're involved with.
Yes, I am. Yes.
And that's so people know you and they know about your books.
They do. The schools, they really like the format, and the unity and how I speak to all the different ethnic groups and the coming together. All of the little characters and all the parents in the stories and the teachers, and they have firemen and policemen, and they have the mayor. They all come together in this little town. So everything that they do, everybody works together in the community. And the schools really like that. They like promoting that. So I've had some principals who really love the storyline, and they encourage it to, for me to come in and read the stories to the little ones and sing the songs. And a lot of the parents were fortunate enough to get some of the books. The teachers, they had purchased just a certain amount of them, but I did very well with that.
Of course you did very well with that, Rena. You've got such great energy, great stories of inclusion and of kids being kind and fair. Maybe adults should read your stories too. Just keep them coming, all right? You're going to be fine. All right, that is a wrap for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Thank you, authors. Thank you for being here and downloading the Page Publishing Book Club at 710WOR.com. We are full on into spring and hopefully moving toward a COVID-free world so everybody can get back to book signings. So start writing now, and then by the time you're done, you can stop by, hang out with us, and maybe do some face-to-face book signings. They'll be normal again, no matter where you live. Imagine that, right? We can only hope. All right, till next time, I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.